This is the farmhouse where I grew up, where my father grew up, where my grandfather grew up, where my great-grandfather grew up. The main house was built in 1860. We got electricity in 1943 with the Rural Electrification Act. And now what I am doing is I'm removing the majority of the 1960 updates and reverting the era back to somewhere between 1920 and 1950. I'm going to show you each room in the order that I did them years ago. While I am no more of a carpenter or a designer than any member of my family has ever been, I'm doing it to suit me and my tastes. This was our cluttered little kitchen from the 1965 upgrade. If you notice, it was small and you could hardly walk around the island. And if you look over by the range where we used to walk into the pantry, you would see that the range takes up a third of the doorway. The doorway is occluded. So if you needed to, like we once did, we had to replace the washer. We had to remove 4 items along that wall to get the washer out. So we decided to fix that, and we looked at many different ways of doing it, and we decided to just knock the wall out behind the range and create what we called the annex, because we were annexing on a little room to the kitchen. Here you can see we took out the window, and I'm standing in what will become the annex looking through the old window. And here we're starting to take the wall down. We're down to just bare studs. And because that was the old outside of the house, the wall was obviously a load-bearing wall, so we started putting up a multi-piece beam, which consisted of a 2x10 rough cut with a piece of plywood that was glued and screwed together, and then another 2x10 rough cut that was put on the outside, glued and screwed together. The plywood floor was laid at the exact level of the old kitchen linoleum so that we could put a brand new floor over the top, because we found that linoleum was more than likely put down with asbestos glue, and we just wanted to just leave it encapsulated and not get into it. We started putting up the ceiling, which was tung oil rubbed Brazilian knotty pine wainscoting that we found in 8-foot lengths. So we thought it would make a nice looking ceiling, so that's what we used. She who must be obeyed picked out 2 spots on the ceiling where the annex ceiling light should be, and she chose the farther one where you see the wire coming down. Then we put up the drywall, and then using a roto-zip we cut out for the side window. And above that side window is 3 glass block that she wanted added to put more light on the right-hand wall. And this is what it looks like on the outside. And here on the far wall, we cut into the support 2x4s to put nailers, horizontal nailers across, because we wanted to do a wide board wainscoting. And then we used contrasting dark stained lattice over the edges of the boards to create interest. And we topped that feature with a little shelf going the full width of the room. And here's the basic shell of the room, 95% done. And then we were trying to decide where we were going to put our freezer, although it was beginning to look a little tired, so we got the idea to refinish it. First we wet sanded, then we primed it. Then we painted it Rust-Oleum silver hammer paint. And then we decided we didn't like the upright freezer any place in the annex, so I got the idea to cut a hole in the wall and push it through the wall and have it set mostly in the mudroom. Here is the hole cut in the wall. And then I pushed the upright freezer through the wall. And if you notice, the freezer is not setting level. It looks like it's tipped back. That's because I want the door to automatically close using gravity. So how did we accomplish that? If you notice on the back side of the wall, we built a frame because, again, that was a structural wall. Built a 2x4 box, topped it with a piece of plywood, and then we covered the plywood with 6 stick-on tiles from the dollar store just to make it easier to slide the freezer in and out. We also put an electrical receptacle on the right-hand side dedicated just to the freezer. And now back to the ceiling light. She who must be obeyed decided she didn't like where she had picked for the light, so I had to remove some of the ceiling and reposition the wires to the new spot. And the new spot was chosen like this, as you can see, with a support pole, an extension cord, some wire, and a school globe with a bulb in it. And with great effort, we got the wire through. Now you can notice that the wall there is red. So why would it be red when obviously that doesn't match anything else in the kitchen? That used to be the old outside of the house on the back side. And traditionally, the front of the house got the expensive paint, and the back side of the house was painted barn red because it was cheap. So following tradition, I painted it barn red. Where she wanted the light, there was obviously no support, so some pocket screws and a little glue and a piece of 2x4, and we made a support. And then we mounted the base for what I thought was going to be the last light modification. Little did I know. So here it is in its first incarnation, and the second, and the third. Now this one is a very expensive halophane light that we found at Brimfield, Massachusetts, during an antique show. This is a close-up of what it looks like lit. It's got a 125 watt, 6500K CFL in it. And that is how we built the Annex.